Think for yourself. Question authority.
What's up, guys? Welcome back. Now, first of all, I want to thank you all very much for coming out to the live stream I did about a little over a week ago. It has become the highest viewed live stream that I have on the channel for 2019. Thank you all for coming out. And also on Saturday, I did a movie review of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. And that is actually only the second movie review I've ever done on the channel. The first one I did was back in 2015 for Star Wars: The Force Awakens. So Star Wars I'm a fan of, so I thought this was a pretty big, important movie to talk about. So if you haven't checked it out, go ahead and do so. I probably won't be doing very many movie reviews on this channel, obviously, since I'm focused on gaming, but that was a special occurrence. So go ahead and check it out and let me know what you think of it. Getting on to the really cool information we have to talk about here in this video, and that is that Macronix, the cartridge manufacturer for the NAND cartridges, the ROM cartridges that the Nintendo Switch uses, have confirmed that they will be producing 64 gigabyte 3D NAND cartridges in 2020 for Nintendo. And this was reported by a couple different websites I'll leave in the description, but it originated from a report from Digitimes, who reported this, that Macronix will in fact be upgrading for the first time to their 3D NAND cartridges, which will allow them to greatly increase their storage capacity to beyond just 32 gigabytes, obviously to 64 gigabytes, and then most likely years down the line they'll be able to increase that to 128 gigabytes. But I don't expect that to happen for quite some time. And this has led to a lot of question from others, not from me, but from others, as to why on earth would Nintendo be using 64 gigabyte cartridges in 2020. There's no games announced that would be using that much storage space for a cartridge. So what game would Nintendo be using, or what game would a third party be using as well, since nothing has been announced for 2020? That's a very good question, right? However, first of all, let's go ahead and explain exactly what 3D NAND is for these cartridges and why it's a benefit and how it works. So take a look at this.
So what is 3D NAND? If you think of previous planar technologies as being, say, a single-story office building, then 3D NAND is more like a skyscraper, mitigating the memory shrink constraints of Moore's Law, because more layers in this new technology require more manufacturing steps.
This kind of technology rollout, though, this is really something revolutionary. So this is a completely different change in approach, and that's part of what makes it so significant.
The first wave of NAND technology was used in things like MP3 players. Then it evolved to solid-state drives. But Shirley says 3D NAND is a new dimension.
Really, what vertical NAND can do is a whole new level of application innovation. So with the kinds of things that 3D NAND enables, you start talking about entire new markets that get created by virtue of that kind of storage technology. This will be exciting stuff.
So that is really interesting. How 3D NAND works is that they are changing the layout of how it is positioned on the cartridges so they can fit more transistors, more space in the cartridge vertically instead of horizontally, in order to continue to stack and stack and stack more storage space on these cartridges. And the 3D NAND cartridges that Macronix is going to be making for Nintendo are 48 layers. So they're stacking 48 layers of data basically vertically instead of horizontally, which allows them to give a bigger size cartridge. Henceforth, the first of them are going to be the 64 gigabyte cartridges being provided for Nintendo. And Nintendo, by the way, is first in line. So Nintendo has requested these in 2020, like right off the bat. As soon as they're ready, Nintendo is going after these carts. So why is Nintendo in such a hurry, quote unquote hurry, to get these 64 gigabyte cartridges ready in 2020, you may ask? And of course, we don't have the official confirmation or verbiage on that from Nintendo, but it seems heavily likely that they will be releasing yet another variant of the Nintendo Switch in 2020. All the information has pointed to that, and this is further proof and evidence that they will be doing just that as well. Because of the timing of it, next generation consoles are about to launch at the end of 2020, so it makes sense that Nintendo will be ordering these carts from Macronix in 2020 to get them ready for this upgraded console so they could get ports from these systems when the time comes. Macronix is making a lot of money from Nintendo. Nintendo has to purchase these carts from them and then of course sell them to the consumer. And most Nintendo Switch games are under 32 gigabytes in storage space, so a 32 gigabyte cartridge would technically be enough for most games to fit on the Switch. I believe there's only been a couple instances where they've gone beyond 32 gigabytes. I could be wrong about that, but for the most part, games will fit 32 gigabytes or less on Nintendo Switch games. So if Nintendo's going for 64 gigabytes, they're obviously planning for the future and a hardware upgrade in order to fit bigger size games on their consoles going forward. Because 64 gigabytes is bigger than the normal size of a PlayStation 4 game. Usually those games on PlayStation 4 range between 45 to 50 gigabytes per game, and maybe a little more of that with DLC and whatnot, but usually it's around that 50 gigabyte range for PlayStation 4 games. So going right up to 64 gigabytes, that doubles the current size of the biggest Nintendo Switch cart, which is 32 gigabytes. And if Nintendo wasn't the very first customer on the block to get these cartridges in 2020, then maybe you could question as to why Nintendo wouldn't be buying these in 2020, unless they are in fact releasing a new piece of hardware that will benefit from having that big of a cart to run games on it. The current Switch, like we said, doesn't have games that are even close to 64 gigabytes. And yes, most likely these carts would be more expensive than what you would imagine. However, it is nice that Nintendo would get these carts for their upcoming hardware because it gives developers the opportunity to provide the entire game to consumers instead of just being forced to just provide maybe 16 gigabytes or 8 gigabytes and then have the consumer download the rest of the game, sometimes 3/4 of the game, onto an SD card. So that is a nice option to have for developers if they do want to do that and actually spend the extra cost for that. That part remains to be seen as far as how much these carts are going to cost developers to use on upcoming Nintendo Switch hardware. But it does look like Nintendo will be releasing their new, more powerful Switch, new Switch, whatever you want to call it, in 2020, in time or before the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X comes out. You have to remember we had that report from Nikkei in early 2019 saying that Nintendo will release a next generation full model upgrade of the Nintendo Switch after they release the Switch Lite. So of course, Switch Lite has been released, and they never specified a time range for when that console will be released, but obviously it's looking like it's going to be 2020 from everything that we're seeing here. And of course, we have the report from the Wall Street Journal that this new Switch will be using Sharp IGZO displays, which is their premium near OLED quality type of displays, something similar to like a Samsung Galaxy type of quality or iPhone quality display for this new Nintendo Switch hardware. So you combine that timing range that these reports are giving, all the information we've uncovered on this channel for the past year in 2019. It's been a great year, it's been really fun. And now that Nintendo is lining up first on the block, give us this 64 gigabyte cart, it all makes perfect sense that they are lining this up for a new console launch in 2020. And that is very exciting because that's what you would want to do as a business with Nintendo, because you have to remember about this as well, is that Nintendo doesn't really have the 3DS anymore to rely on for backup support for sales if and when the current Nintendo Switch hardware sales start declining, especially during the launches of the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 at the end of 2020. All these companies are vying for your dollar and your attention as a gamer. So if the other companies are drawing that away from Nintendo, there is a possibility the current Switch hardware will be affected by those launches by the end of 2020. That's just the way it goes in gaming. You got the latest and greatest from the other companies, and if you're not doing something yourself with your own latest and greatest as Nintendo, your sales are most likely going to be affected by the competition because all the competition in gaming is vying for your dollar. And the Switch hardware division is all Nintendo has. They have no other backup support if the sales of the Switch and Switch Lite decline to a point where they need to release a system rapidly, like, oh my gosh, we're in panic mode. They don't want to get to that point. And the Switch Lite, which was released in September 2019, is already not selling as well as the current OG Nintendo Switch, even in Japan. The hardware sales are like half per week in Japan. So that system definitely is like an additive support to the current Nintendo Switch hardware, but it is exactly the same piece of technology. It runs exactly the same games. So overall, if sales decline for the Switch OG, they're also going to decline even worse for the Switch Lite. So no, the Switch Lite is not an answer to the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, which in turn leads credence to all the reports and rumors and information we've uncovered that this upgraded Switch will in fact be coming in 2020. And you can also think of it this way as far as competitors are concerned in the same business. This is a video game business, and cell phone companies are competing in the cell phone business. So a good example to compare this to would be like Motorola and their new phones that they come out every single year. They come out with a budget-priced cell phone that is pretty good in quality, pretty good in features, pretty good on screen and everything, but it's about half the price of a iPhone or a Galaxy. Even their base models are like half the price for Motorola. But they still release those new products every single year along with the new phones. And why do they do that? Well, it's because there's lots of consumers out there that are looking for a more budget-friendly priced item that is also brand new. So the same applies for Nintendo. They're not competing for 4K graphics, that's true, but when your competitors are releasing their new products to get the eyes of the consumer and actually moving the generation forward as far as next generation starts with them because they're doing it, you can bet that Nintendo's going to do the exact same thing with their Switch brand to keep eyes on them and their products to continue to get your money, because that's what they want. They want your money to sell their hardware, and their hardware is making them a lot of money and profits. So now with the introduction of the 64GB cartridge, Nintendo is just right there, gonna grab it in 2020. They're not waiting till 2021 to grab this new cartridge that's confirmed to come in 2020. You can bet that this is part of their strategy to go forward and release even more hardware that supports these much bigger games, especially from these AAA third-party developers that will in fact require a lot more storage space from their games. And 64GB will definitely get them there, at least in the beginning. So it's really exciting to see, guys, and 2019 has been great. I'm looking forward to 2020, and we're going to continue on to see how it shapes up, but it's looking like things are going exactly as planned for Nintendo and for the upcoming next generation. So let me know what you guys all think about this in the comment section. If you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button, subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you very soon in the next video. Have a great day.